thrilled for today's guest, Michael Ekbundit. He is the director of the engineering programs at GE Appliances, a hire company. And I know you do other things as well.
Every
Michael,
once in a while.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a design engineer by degree and trade. I have been working new product introduction and developing stuff most of my adult life. Closing in on 20 patents now. And I also founded 16 years ago and still run what I think might be one of the biggest STEM programs in Kentucky, mostly in Bullitt County and Shelby County, but working with students, mostly grades 6 through 12. And then, of course, in my day job, I help manage the early talent pipeline for incoming design engineers. So I have undergraduate and graduate. So on any given day, I have 6th grade through the end of grad school. So I do have both of my degrees from the University of Louisville, where I was also a cheerleader for a long time. Got my national championship ring that I still have.
That's amazing.
It's a big, ugly thing.
Hard
earned.
I played field hockey. Michael and I were talking about this, and I'm like, well, I didn't get a national championship, so that's amazing.
It was a great experience. My only time on being on ESPN that I know of.
That you know of.
That I know of.
Could you start us out by just giving us a picture of your understanding of and experience with AI?
So, depending on your definition of what AI is, I think most people now think about it and are thinking about large language models, ChatGPT. If I go back into my old speed school days, we were programming machines to behave and respond to certain inputs. It was really scripted, kind of like a call center call, right? Where like, oh, what's wrong with your washer? Is it making a noise? Is it a thumpy noise right?
Yeah. Yes.
That kind of thing where we kind of worked our way through. It didn't feel like AI at the time, right? It just felt like having something else answer your questions for you that were fixed in space somehow.
Scripted.
Yeah. And, then video games came along and then you suddenly got to start picking your own adventure. And then I'm not a big video gamer. I actually can't play video games very well. My children make fun of me. But moving forward in time, then, most recently, certainly, I spent a lot more time thinking about it with the launch of ChatGPT and suddenly realizing that it wasn't just a thing for big tech or big government or those other nerdy weirdos that sit in rooms and code things, right? And
Hackers Lounge,
right? It's suddenly all of a sudden there's access and it's not going away. Like it's a thing. It's going to stay. Might as well get used to it.
It's very applicable to your daily usage of what you need, whether it's writing an email or we were talking about writing music. So very applicable.
And how would you describe AI as connecting to the educational community efforts that you have mentioned earlier?
That's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Public education has a lot of inertia, right? There's a lot of process and a lot of tradition and history, and a lot of it for good reasons. I'm not going to complain about it. But when you're introducing a technology like AI, where there's a lot of unknown, a lot of feelings, a lot of doubt, a lot of hesitation, when you try to put that in, it starts to feel a little bit awkward because half the group is, for, half against, or whatever the percentage is. What I've chosen to do is try to socialize it on the front end. Tell the people we're going to be doing this a little bit. And when I introduce it at the 6th grade level, it's more like advanced Google search.
Okay.
Right. Just type in some stuff, go look for it, see what happens. And when you get what you're looking for, ask another question. Just keep going and do it that way. And kids catch on pretty fast, but teachers are a little wary, right? Because, we're going to plagiarize something. At higher levels, I think, for whatever reason, my observation is that we start to lose our inquisitiveness a little bit. And we start to lose our willingness to try new things. And by the time, the 6th graders are going, yeah, let's try that. I want to do this. And then, inevitably you end up with somebody trying to do something humorous. But at the 9th grade level, it becomes, but what do I really need to do to make my A? And by the time you get to 12th grade, like, I don't really want to do that anymore. I'm all schooled out. And I just give me the checklist of items that I need to do to get my grade. Sometimes, not always, right? I just recently taught a class for UL Speed School. So it was second semester freshman. It was an intro to product development thing. And the first lesson was research. So I asked them and told them they had to go use AI. Go get out there and use ChatGPT.
So 18, 19-year-olds.
13th grade.
Yeah.
Right. So we go out and suddenly the pendulum, I found, at least the group that I had, the pendulum started to swing back the other way because they're like, oh, I don't know the answer to this question. I can go ask and then keep asking. And then because I'm competing with all these other folks for scholarship money that I need to have, suddenly my answer needs to be really, really good. And now I have an opportunity to craft something to differentiate myself. So somewhere between what is this and what does it do? New, shiny, yay, to too much. And then back the other way till, where I get to sit with a bunch of really smart people at work and getting a new tool to introduce new capability is something to get excited about. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is shiny.
Let's take this thing out for a spin and see if we can break it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a weird spectrum of stuff. And and I think for me, the curiosity is more about how humans respond at what age and when versus what the tool does or doesn't do, which is its own interesting thing.
What I love how you talk about just human behavior, feels like, is oftentimes, it seems, in that example, the barrier between whether someone's going to try a new thing or continually progress with their learning. So when it comes to AI, what do you feel like right now is a barrier in just higher education and implementing this technology? Is it just getting them to do, or people to do the behavior, or is it more than that?
At some level, there's fear.
Okay.
And then I think in some ways that fear is tied to access,
Oh, okay.
right? If I don't believe you're going to do the right thing with the tool that I give you, then maybe I don't want to give it to you to begin with. Or I don't know what you're actually going to do with it, and maybe you'll choose to do something wrong. It's kind of leaning into the negative side of human behavior. Are you going to cheat? Are you going to copy? Are you going to do some other thing? Are you going to create something bad? Are you going to use your superpowers for bad
Well, let's
and
be
evil,
ethical.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's the folks that go, wait a minute, this is a chance for me to overcome a barrier that I have with a tool so that I can continue past it. You know what? I'll give a personal example is I'm not very good at writing. I mean, I know how to write. I know how to make letters and words and paragraphs, but sometimes they're not very interesting, very literate, or, well, grammatically correct. And so I can filter what I write through an AI, ask it to increase the complexity level or whatever I want, adjust the tone, add a colloquialism, add humor, something, and it gives me enough that I can get over the hump. I don't know. Have you ever played a game called Contexto? It's a browser-based game.
Okay.
And the nature of the game is you enter a word. The game is that you have to keep entering words, and the computer tells you how far away your word is from the word of the day.
Oh, okay.
So
You're trying to guess it.
But you don't get any hints. And so you just keep typing in words. Well, what I find is that I will get in a rut. Like my mind, if I start with mountain, I'll go to lake, stream, trail, hiking, bike, boot, fish, whatever. I don't easily jump to another bucket of words. And so I'll sit there, it would be on guess number 537 or some terrible number. And it's that kind of mental block where you get so used to being in your own head and doing the same repetitive tasks, thinking in the same patterns, where I think using AI actually can help.
Can break that.
Can help us break the cycle. And having kids do that, who, especially the younger ones who don't already have walls up, having them have access to being able to make big jumps is pretty interesting. And the ones that preserve that curiosity and that interest and that willingness to explore and preserve that through middle school and into high school, I've seen some of those students do just amazing work that they had no idea about before.
Just because they were a continuous learner and curious.
And every time you handed them a new tool, they figured out how to use it for good. We just finished the school year. And one of the groups that I was working with, it was a group of 14-year-old girls, they're freshmen. And this year's theme project, there were year-long engineering projects. This year's theme project was to invent a thing to help a person with a disability to be able to live independently in a tiny house with net zero energy usage, food independence, and accessibility. So these students all had friends or relatives that had special needs, cognitive needs, and they chose to invent a closed loop alarm system for the person that's going to live in the house. So to prove their feasibility, they designed a transmitter that would sense when a sensor got tripped. It would send a signal via Bluetooth to a watch that had a receiver, a buzzer, and a light. These kids had never drawn CAD, never written code, never wired anything, had never seen a PCB.
They're 14.
They're 14, and they got on ChatGPT and used ChatGPT to help them evolve their Arduino code for the board that they wrote. And then they used, the internet searches to help them learn how to do CAD. They learned CAD from scratch, ended up 3D printing a watch design, and hand wove the band out of paracord, and then programmed the transmitter. And they proved feasibility on an alert system. So next year they're going to look at adding more sensors so that somebody who doesn't understand what needs to be done can get an alert and go look for it.
Okay, we got it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so first of all, you mentioned obviously STEM program that you have built and created. Walk us through is this something you're doing in Kentucky? Is this something you're doing in Louisville? Give us a little context.
Sure.
Around.
I jumped right to the end. Sorry.
Well, because I'm like, this is incredible work you're doing. And when I think about a 14-year-old being able to do that, I think about AI, I'm like, all right, you got to learn it because these 14-year-olds are coming.
No, I'm not going to lie. Those 14-year-olds are exceptional, right? I mean,
they have to be in this program.
They in that particular group, yes.
Okay.
So it started out. We moved into Bullitt County when my oldest one was in first grade, and I noticed that the teachers did not like to teach physical science, and so I volunteered to come in and guest lecture and just do group projects about whatever topic. Like they never liked to do any of heat, light, magnetism, friction, but everybody liked the life sciences, so they did all the water cycle and frogs.
Sure.
So Mr. Ekbundit was allowed to come and hang out with the kids every once in a while, and that kind of got me hooked on wanting to help kids. And it became formal. We started creating storylines to connect lecture sessions, and it evolved into small projects that were 6, 8, 10 weeks long, where I would visit every couple of weeks. And then finally, about 9 years ago, evolved into year-long high school STEM projects, where I came in at the beginning of the year, and then I would take them through a typical product development cycle from beginning to end, starting with research. I would just give them a really open-ended challenge and then let them have at it. And I don't care what you invent. We'll help you go.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, I reapplied the story arc method so that there was a backstory to the projects. You weren't just creating a thing anymore. You were creating a thing with purpose that was going to help other people. And that's when I also chose to introduce philanthropy into the projects. So for example, now this year was the second year of us working on this tiny house. We've all the high schools that I work with, including the trade schools, we're all doing projects that contributed to developing this tiny house that we have built.
Okay.
So
where is it? Where's the house?
It is in Bullitt County. It's in Shepherdsville.
Okay.
It's 240 square feet, designed wheelchair accessibility, has its own solar array. The kids are designing a windmill for it now. It's got appliances and things, and we're just slowly evolving it. But the story there is that that's a house that we're modeling to potentially support a charity called Refuge for Women that rescues women from human trafficking. So women coming out of human trafficking have not had the opportunity to live independently, don't know how to run a house. They don't know how to do the things because a lot of them were abducted as children and don't know how to live independently. And so we want to create a space that's safe, that's easy to maintain, that's easy to live in. And while we're at it, we don't know what kind of abuse they may or may not have had. So we're designing it with accessibility in mind and simplicity. So that's what we've been working on for a couple of years. And so when you tell that story to the students up front, like, I'm not trying to get you to design a widget.
This is what we're doing.
We're designing something to help somebody that can't help themselves. And your work, if you take it seriously, is going to help other people.
It's going to change lives.
And we're going to build it, and it's going to go right over there.
I mean, I'm in. I'm like, how do I get involved?
Right. And so but it makes it easier, right? For a lot of different things. So when we had the opportunity this year to start introducing AI, I thought we'd just go ahead and just jump in, because there's no dodging it, and there's no formal process for it that I know of in any of the schools. So let's just go for it. It's a small enough group of people. There's only a few hundred students in my group.
Okay.
Across the 5 high schools or 6 high schools.
How do they get into the group? Do they apply?
So the middle schoolers, I just show up by invitation. If the teacher wants me to come and do a project, they have to hold their end of the deal, but we will come and do a project, and I'll bring mentors or other people with me if I need to.
Okay.
Because we do it. All of this stuff is done in school during school. This is not a weekend or a nighttime thing. I get the opportunity to leave work and go instruct students.
So
and
you
take
leave
people with me.
GE to come to do that?
I do.
That's amazing.
I do.
Okay.
And so it's also an opportunity for me to introduce mentorship to my people that work for me, right? So let's go see what it means to help other people. So they get to apply what they already learned in college to teach it to other students that may want to learn it in college. So there's this whole ecosystem, this whole loop here, and this layers. So my favorite topic. I will talk you to death about it. But introducing AI meant that in the closed loop that I have access to some number of teachers and some number of students. The direct answer to your question before I forget to answer it. The middle schoolers, I come by invitation. There's a high school gifted program that all the students in that program will do it, and there's 50 at any time. At the traditional high schools, I've been given the opportunity to teach the 4th year Project Lead the Way course. So those students actually get graduation credit because this is a class for them. They have a teacher that's there all the time, and I come and do content lectures and bring mentors as needed. So there's different ways for different people to get in. Any school can invite me to do whatever. If they just want one-time lecture, whatever. If they want to do short projects, long projects, you just have to have the teachers and staff to support it on your end, because there's a lot of work on your side, right? Not just me showing up and working with your students. But the net cost is $0.
And you get the mentorship and leaders coming in.
And so we find a way to get all these students involved. And when we talk to them about why we're doing things, it suddenly, right, you can see the light bulb come on. You can see all of a sudden, even though maybe they don't know a single person rescued from human trafficking, as soon as you say the word handicap accessibility or elderly aging in place, all of a sudden people start recognizing, somebody in their lives. That opens up the willingness to try new things. That's the loop I'm trying to draw here. Is now when you want to, and you have a thing in mind that you want to do, when I introduce a tool to you that makes it easier for you to get there, if you'll use it, then all of a sudden your willingness to use that tool suddenly goes up.
What you're doing, this program is extraordinary. And I hope that there's more schools that are going to be set up in the future to provide this opportunity. I certainly wish I would have had it. It seems from this conversation, it's a little maybe easier for kids to try something new, and especially when it comes to AI. What hurdles do you see your peers right now with actually integrating AI and applying it to their daily lives?
I think there's some commonality between introducing AI versus any other thing, right? We all have our systems and processes and things that we do every day. We have our routines. We drive the same way to work. We all have the things that we do in order, and making a change to that routine that works, that you're comfortable with, that you can fly on autopilot, right, is suddenly a thing. Like, what do you mean I don't want a different brand of coffee?
Change.
Any change is hard. Then if you're just doing change and you don't know if you're going to get anything out of it, and you know your current process works really well, that's its own thing. And then making time to learn something new is a whole thing in and of itself. And I think that's a little more universal because you do have to spend time learning what an AI is. I don't think you have to spend too terribly much time if you're inquisitive enough and you just sit down. Like our CEO encourages us to spend at least 10 hours interacting with the AI. Just don't quit. Just spend 10 hours period to see if you find any benefit to using it. Try it. Try different stuff. Write an email, write a letter, ask a question, do research, whatever. Just try. Create yourself an agent. Because you can do that, right? You can just create yourself an agent to do whatever.
Yeah.
Try it and see if it does anything. Just whatever. Give yourself an opportunity. And he's given us permission, right, as a company to block off a little time and try it out and see what we can do and kind of crowdsource all the ideas. And it's pretty freeing.
So do you see, obviously that's G, do you see that same permission being given in higher education?
Well, even if you can't access it, like, a lot of school systems have stuff blocked off and you can't get to that. But even if you don't, if I'm a teacher and I know this is coming and I know there's not really any getting around it, I probably have a computer of my own and there's nothing to stop me from logging in, creating an account and start doing things or just get into Bing chat. It's built into, right? And DALL-E is built into Bing now. You can just generate images of stuff.
Just try it.
Try anything. Because it'll do almost anything. It'll try to do almost anything, right? I mean, the way the thing works.
Maybe not well, but it will try.
But you can tell it, like, you can, anybody listening to this, go home and get in there and ask ChatGPT to create a new, cocktail recipe. And you can enter anything you want in there along with it. I want it to eventually turn blue, or I want it to taste minty, or
use this liquor. Yeah.
Anything you want, and it will give you something. I'm not saying it'll taste good, but if that's your jam because you like to mess with stuff, as a weekend bartender, then maybe that's the thing. You can ask it to make a cake or
whatever you want.
Right.
So, okay. So higher ed, obviously there may be some challenges if you don't have access to the tools, but you're still saying, hey, go try it. Do you think that, obviously if companies like GE are trying it, they're spending 10, 20, 30 hours, they're developing new tools. Do you see a gap between higher education and then, the rest of the world if that happens?
I do. I think so. Because right now, in the public school sector, school systems sometimes are issuing computers. And those are all enterprise machines that are locked down and probably have Google Suite or something like that, right?
Sure.
And so a lot of stuff may be blocked and you can't get to it. But when I get to college, I probably have my own computer. I probably have a different thing. And that might be the difference in the interaction that I've had. Like all of a sudden you had a computer that you could do that with, and you had a professor require it as a homework for you to go try.
Yeah.
And just to verify that, at least for my students in their first assignment, just to verify they actually did the homework with the learning objective in mind. Like by all means, spend as much time chatting on there as you want, talking to ChatGPT or whatever thing you're using. But for this homework, I want you to use this so you can get these things and tell me why this is important, what parts stood out to you, what you plan to do with it, and why it matters.
This is what we're solving for.
We're solving for a thing. Make sure you keep that in mind. We're not just randomly messing around. You can, though. By all means, go for it and figure out how to get the output that you need. And I didn't give them any instruction beyond that. Gave them a week. And that group of students, 100% of them figured it out. And they were able to use the tool for the right purpose and also came back to class with some curious other things that they learned along the way.
Something I'm curious to hear about from you is how you present kind of just on a broad picture view of AI to these students, because it'll of course be just a huge part of their lives once they're kind of out in the real world.
The wild.
Yeah. Just this week, Google is rolling out its AI overviews, which is kind of like, now the search engine is going to start more and more resembling the chatbot, like interacting with a chatbot. So it's basically we're going to get to a point where like pretty much whatever job you're working, even just on and off the job, you're going to be interacting with AI pretty consistently, and it'll have a large impact on just how you live. So how do you present the technology to the children in terms of, how it, like, this thing is going to actually change your life?
That's a great question. I do it in layers. At the younger, lower grades, 6th grade, 4th grade, just try to take some of the scare factor out of it. It's just a thing. You can ask it questions instead of, like, they're all familiar with search engines. So, like, just imagine a search engine that you can talk to. Let's start there and see that if you get a result, you can ask it a question about whatever you found, and then keep asking it questions. And so far, I've had pretty good response with that because the kids understand, because, well, on the search engine, I'm just typing in stuff, and then I'm going to type in more stuff. Except in this case, I can narrow the focus and have the conversation, and then adjust that conversation as I want to. So I can just ask it whatever I feel like, and there's no shame in it. There's not really any accountability in it. We do ask the teachers to keep track, right? Just look over their shoulder and make sure nobody's trying to come up with a recipe for napalm or something, right? But so we do want to have some accountability. But in terms of introducing it to the younger students, just having them think about it a little bit
At a time.
At a time. I'm not trying to explain to them, because I'm not sure that I could do it correctly anyway. Like the token system built into LLMs. Like, I'm not explaining how it works or that it's a predictive model that's not actually like, they don't care.
Yeah.
Let's just get used to talking with it and trying. As the grades are older, then I'm trying to remind them give them more purpose, to remind them of the learning objectives for the thing we're doing, so that they make sure they understand that they're using an AI to an end. You're going to do this, but you're going to get this out of it. So keep doing whatever it is until you get to this point. And that being purpose-driven seems to provide some clarity, so that at least while I'm having the conversation, I'm not going to veer too far off. I have a reason. Oh, well, what about this? Well, then how many of these? And then what does this mean? And where does this use in the rest of the world? That seems to help guide the bus a little bit through 9th grade, 10th grade. When we get to 12th grade, they're all business. A lot, really. These are the kids that I deal with.
Tell me what to do. Check in the box.
Right? Because I want to get it done. Okay, well, but I gave you a really, really open-ended problem statement. You are going to come up with a solution. So now use the AI to help identify a field of solutions, and then let's work together so that you can choose your own adventure. I'll help you pick a thing that you're committed to. And since it's an open-ended question to a problem that you probably never thought about, let's use the capabilities to explore. You don't know what you don't know yet. Let's just really get in there and explore, so that you can find the thing that you can connect to as a human, so that now, again, we're back to purpose.
Yeah.
And then back to usage, so that then I have their focus, and now they've been introduced to a tool that helps them kind of follow their own journey as they pick it. That seems to take some of the prescriptiveness out of it. I still have to provide a checklist. I still have to have homeworks, because they still care about making the A, right?
Yeah, sure.
But now they have another extra set of tools to do it.
So you talk about, creating this journey, choosing your path. You're a parent. You have experience in higher education. You have experience in business, corporate America. As a parent, what wisdom would you give encouraging AI technology down that path?
This strikes a nerve for me a little bit, because I have one who just graduated from high school. She also got her associate's degree while she was in high school, and she's getting ready to leave and go to college. And that, as a parent, there's maybe the appeal, at least it is for me, is this child of mine is getting ready to move into adulthood and is moving on with life. For me to stay connected to my child at any age, I have to show interest in something that they do, even if I don't really want to do that, right? Like, I learned a lot of princess names.
That's love.
Well, my daughter grew up, right? Like, I don't know how many times we watched Frozen or whatever it was, right? You had to sing the song and whatever. In the case of AI, I think if you're lucky enough to have had a student be introduced to it already, or if you're interested enough that you want to introduce I think there's an opportunity to find some common interest, some common ground, so that you have an application for that, so that you can do that together.
And stay connected.
That's your opportunity to not just equip your child for what's inevitably coming, but that gives you an opportunity to learn it with them, and you don't have to be the teacher role. You can just be doing it together. And that gives you another thing to talk about, another thing to do. And then you can create an adventure together. And it might be something as simple as, hey, I want to take a trip with you. So let's get online and let's start asking about because I did this actually.
Well, I was like, this is a perfect, hey, what college do you want to go to? Well, let's go to ChatGPT and, let's ask questions about different colleges or vocational schools.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I want to go on vacation for 4 days in this location. Create me an agenda of things to do that are the most popular tourist attractions. Recommend, give me a travel agenda, and then you can talk about it, and then let the AI do the work. And then what else what's interesting about that? Whatever. And I know it's a little bit more like advanced search engine usage at that point until you get some reason not to, but creating an opportunity to connect with your child, connect with another human being on a common interest, and invest in the relationship as a means to an end. You needed to do that anyway, so why not add a bonus and add a layer?
Do you use AI to kind of augment your own teaching approach?
I do actually. I use it a lot. I just don't know what I don't know, and so I'll just start. It's kind of like playing Contexto, where I just start somewhere.
You just got to start.
And just hammer at it and then just keep jumping. And when I feel like I'm stuck, I actually will use DALL-E and Bing as a mental stimulator, where I'll go in and I'll type in the words that I'm thinking and that I'm trying to get outside of. And if I type it into DALL-E, it'll create an array of images, right? And sometimes those images include stuff that's just enough of an inspiration to think about something else. Right. So if you type in, I want to see a Jack Russell Terrier surfing, well, you'll get a Jack Russell Terrier surfing, but then you might get a big wave or a little wave or a shark in the background, palm trees, volcano. Suddenly you're, Hawaii. Or
it's like connecting the dots.
And sometimes I get, I told you I get in a rut. And so I need I need some catalyst to jump out. And I actually use AI for that, where I will just keep going out on whatever topic I'm trying to research, and what are examples, or what are things in the world that are similar. And then when I really get stuck, switch over. I'll go to image mode, or I'll switch to music, or switch to another thing just to get the extra click over, and then roll it again. And so I practice literally exactly what I ask the students to do. Maybe not on exactly the same topic, but it works for me. It works for me consistently, and I found that it works for them too if they'll do it. So I don't mind living it, because it helps me too.
Michael, thank you so much for coming on the Go AI podcast. I've learned a lot. It's truly a privilege to just learn about what you're doing in our community and beyond. What would be one piece of advice, piece of wisdom that you would want to leave our audience regarding AI and technology?
Engage. Don't be afraid. You have all the access that you probably need. You have time. You do have time. You probably do have a need that you don't know yet. So, instead of watching the extra 25 minutes of YouTube or whatever it is,
or Netflix,
right? Or Netflix, give yourself some time to maybe try something different. And I think you'll find that if you're working on something that you actually care about, the time flies just as fast as anything else. But don't be afraid. Just step right in, both feet. Drag your kids with you. They probably already know, and you didn't know it yet.
You heard it, everyone. Engage. Michael, where can our audience find you? If they want to follow you, if they want to reach out, if they have questions, how do they get in touch?
I think my easiest place to find me is probably LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay, we'll include that.
I try to be visible there. Well, I spend a lot of time in face-to-face with a lot of people, so I prefer being present and engaged, and I like the human interaction side of it. So being able to play up on that while introducing, whether it's AI or any other tool, that's kind of my jam. So I
love it.
I love it. Hopefully, I'll get to see folks out and about.
Perfect. We will point them to LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Michael.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity.